Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lion's Den. Today we speak with Michael DeLon, the owner of Paperback Expert. Michael's an awesome guy. You guys are really going to find his insights to be very helpful. What his company does is it helps experts and entrepreneurs to basically pull the information out of their brain and put it into a book. So they're book writers. And that having that book builds credibility for you as an entrepreneur. And so part of this book writing model is all about marketing and building your credibility. And Michael has a really unique ability to weave different like personal, interesting stories into the informational book itself. So you guys are really going to enjoy this. Without further ado, let's get started with our interview with Michael DeLon. Michael, welcome to the Lion's Den.
Hey, thanks, Nico. I've always wanted to be in the Lion's Den. After Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in here or not. Or Daniel. I guess it was Daniel in the Lion's Den. They were in the den of fire.
That's right. But this is not as aggressive as that Lion's Den.
Good.
Okay, it's just the Nemean lion is our logo. It's our ethos. So we call it the Lion's Den, but it's much friendlier than that. There's no danger here.
I love it. Thanks for having me here. It's going to be a great conversation, man.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in then. So you are known as the credibility coach. Mm-hmm. Because try to just summarize this at a high level, because you've built a business around helping people pull knowledge out of their brains and turn that into a book, primarily, maybe other things, but a book, which they can then use to prove their credibility. Do I have that right at a high level?
At a high level, you've got that right.
Okay, cool. So I'm a business consultant, as you know, and so my whole profession is about building credibility within the sales process as I'm trying to land a new client. Yeah. And then of course I have to deliver on that credibility. So this makes total sense to me from like a business consultant perspective. What other sorts of professions have you seen this work really well for?
Yeah, well, just about every. So everywhere from, we do a lot of work with attorneys, financial advisors. We've done auto repair shops. I did one for a canine dog trainer. He trains the canine dogs for like the police forces and the airports. That's his business. And he came to me and I don't know if you know this, right, but that's a super competitive market. And they all say the same things and they all market the same way. And he came to us, we created his book. He used his book in his marketing, and people would read his book and say, we want to work with you. And it changed how his business operates. So we've done it from, dog trainers to financial advisors to coaches, because my philosophy is a business owner is an expert at what they do. We help you take that expertise and put it in the pages of your book and change how people think about you, so you don't sound like Charlie Brown's teacher like every other attorney or financial advisor.
Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like then it really works well for any profession in which the marketing messaging has become like really commoditized across everybody in the industry. That's interesting.
100%. Yeah. And unfortunately or not, fortunately for me, that's every industry, because business owners, they hire web development firms to build their website, and they hire social media firms to do their social media. Well, after a while, they all say the same thing. They look the same way, and it's you're a chocolate chip cookie. And there's what's different about you. Well, there's a lot, but you're not telling the story that's uniquely you, that separates you, that connects with your audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's your story? Why did you create this business? It's a really cool concept. I love it. I wouldn't have thought to turn it into a business, So how did this come to pass?
Yeah. So this all started a few years ago when I escaped from prison. And it wasn't a literal prison. It's the emotional prison, right? So my long story, let me tell you my whole story in 3 minutes or less, and it'll all make sense. I'm a follower of Christ. I've been married since 1990. First 5 years of my marriage are like this, okay? My wife and I are complete opposites. We both grew up in church, but nobody ever taught us how to be married. So we spent 5 years in just conflict until we went to a family life weekend to remember marriage conference, where we sat in a ballroom with 1,000 people. They shared with us God's blueprints for marriage. I didn't know he had any blueprints. So we grabbed his blueprints. We started working on our marriage. Our marriage got better through the 90s. Okay. In the 90s, I was working for a Christian radio station in sales and marketing. That's where I learned how to do marketing for small business owners. We had two sons during the 90s. At the end of the 90s, God led us out of Christian radio to a startup.com, back when Amazon was just getting started. Sold banner advertising and stuff to local business owners. That company lasted 2 years. It was ahead of its time. That means they went bankrupt. And so I find myself standing in my living room, looking up at the ceiling at God, going, "What am I supposed to do now?" And He speaks to my heart. He says, "Michael, I want you to ministry to marriages. I want you at Family Life, that ministry that changed our marriage." So we raised our support for 2 years as missionaries, moved from Indiana down to Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where that ministry was headquartered. Thought I hit nirvana. Wow, why would I do anything else for the rest of my life, right? So I climbed the corporate ladder, did a lot of things in the ministry, found myself on the leadership team of that ministry, and they started going through corporate reorganizations. Third reorganizational chart got rolled out. My name's no longer on the leadership team. So they start shuffling me around the ministry to do different things. And that was a 2-year, I call it a prison term. I was in a job I hated at a ministry I loved. So after 2 years, I talked to my wife. I prayed. I said, "God, I got to get out of this place." And God said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to help business owners with marketing because they hate it and I love it." And He said, "Okay, go." So on January 1st of 2013, I escaped from prison. I left ministry, started a marketing consulting firm. I'd call you and say, "Nico, I can help you grow your business." You'd meet with me. We'd have a great conversation. And you'd say, "Michael, this all sounds good. Tell me, who else have you helped in the last few years? What else have you been doing?" I said, "Well, help build marriages and families at Family Life." And you say, "Michael, that's so honorable way to go." Oh, look at the time. I got another meeting. Let's reschedule. And you'd usher me out the door. So I wasn't getting any clients because you saw me as a ministry guy, not a marketing guy. And I said, "Okay, I got to fix that." So I went back to my church. Second story, I was pacing the hallways, crying out, saying, "God, how do I help Nico? Because I know I can." And He gave me the idea, Nico. He said, "Take all your strategies and put them in a book." So I did. So I wrote my first book. It's called On Marketing. And I wrote this back in 2013. And then I would call you. I'd set an appointment. I'd mail a copy of my book to you. And a week later, I'd walk in your office for our meeting, and there it was. My book was on your desk, dog-eared, highlighted, underlined. "Nico, you'd read my book." And in that meeting, you say, "Now, Michael, in your book, you said, how do you help me do that?" And you hire me. Now, Nico, the only thing that changed between those two meetings me and you had was the fact that I had a book. And when you got a copy of my book, I instantly became an expert in your mind. And I started gaining clients, and I thought, man, this is really cool marketing. Why don't business owners do this? Well, writing a book is not the easiest thing on the planet. There's just a ton to it. And so I created a process that eliminates all the barriers. And we work with business owners to help them create a book without writing a word. And then we teach them how to use their book in their marketing to gain new clients. So that was the long story, but that's how I got to doing what I do today.
All right. No, it's a very, that is a long story, but it's really interesting, the part where it's like, okay, you opened a marketing firm, you're trying to help people with marketing. Then you realized to help yourself with marketing, you needed to have this book. And so then you said, I need to just do this book thing with my marketing that I'm already doing for businesses. And now, do you still do other marketing, or have you just isolated just the book piece and that's what you help clients with?
We help clients with creating their book and then using their book in their marketing. So I've developed over a dozen systems. We call them credibility marketing systems, to say, okay, now that you have a book, Nico, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use a book as a lead magnet? How are you going to use it as a referral mechanism? How are you going to use it in your educational process from the time you get a lead to when they set an appointment? How do you do that? That's what we teach our clients to do.
Okay, that's awesome. And I like that it's all under one roof too, because I think businesses will find many marketing firms that will help them to leverage their book and use it through the right marketing channels if they already have a book. But in order to have a book, they either have to write one or use ghostwriters or something like that. So it's kind of cool that you do the whole life cycle of that.
Yeah.
Is there, I guess when people think about writing a book, they might think they have a couple options in how to do it. One would be write it themselves. Mm-hmm. Is that not a good option?
Most of the time, it's not the highest and best use of your time is the deal. It's just, you self-edit, and most of us aren't writers. And so it's not the best option. I know some people who have done it, but even if you get the draft out, you still need to hire an editor to make it sound great. So there's more to it than just writing it yourself.
Okay. And I know for me, I mean, I have a sort of a romantic dream of writing a book someday, like actually writing it myself. But
Yeah.
that seems like one of those dreams that I'll be on my deathbed and be like, oh, never ended up writing that book.
Yeah.
Because it is daunting. It is daunting. Okay. So
is.
then another option would be using a ghostwriter.
Mhm.
Is that effectively what you guys are, or would you differentiate yourself from a ghostwriter?
In a sense. So when people talk ghostwriting, usually what they think is, I've got some ideas, I'm going to record them, I'm going to send them to my ghostwriter, they're going to type it out and send it back to me. And that can work. Our process is a little different in that we have a staff of writers, and we actually work with you. Let's say you're doing a book with us, Nico. We're going to work with you, and you're going to meet with your writer about an hour a week for about 10 to 12 weeks. And in that time period, our writer's asking you questions. We are extracting the genius out of your brain through conversation, and you're actually speaking to write your book. So we build the outline chapter by chapter, and then you talk about each point, tell the stories. And what it allows us to do is really capture your voice. Because when people read your book, I want them to hear you. That's how they bond with you. So it's ghostwriting, but it's much more personal ghostwriting, because our professional writers are doing all the heavy lifting, but they're guiding you to get the content and the tone and the feel for the book through these conversations that we have.
Okay, I see. And so if we go back to what you said earlier about there's so many different, types of people that this would work for, lawyers, doctors, canine trainers, you name it. Do you ever find like I'm thinking about a lawyer, or I'm thinking about a wealth manager or something like that. Like, it seems like what they do is kind of boring. Maybe that's my opinion. But so like, how do you take their expertise and then actually turn it into a book that somebody would want to read?
Yeah, because it's really not about what they do. So here's a marketing principle that I follow. People buy who you are more than what you do.
Okay.
Case in point, boring as all get out, personal injury attorney down in Florida, William. He comes to me a number of years ago and says, Michael, I need help. I'm little David against two monster Goliaths who are spending like $100,000 a month on marketing. He's like, I can't compete. I said, all right, let's talk. And so I said, what's your story? Why do you live in Florida? And he said, well, I was in the Northwest or Northeast. I came down to Florida on a baseball scholarship, and I was a pitcher going to the major leagues. And after 2 years, I threw my arm out, had to have surgery, rehabilitation, killed my baseball career, killed everything. I pivoted, became an attorney. I said, wow, fascinating. You ever tell that story to anybody? No. We're going to. So I took that story, created his book, When Life Throws You a Curveball.
Oh, what nice. To do? You had this primed up right here.
Oh, I did. That's one of my favorite ones, because it answers this question of, he can go on TV now. He goes on the morning show, right? And he says, you know what? If life's throwing you a curveball, if you got bit by a dog, hit by a truck, slipped at work, I get it. I've been there. Life threw me a curveball, and now today I get to help you get back your life and get the settlement you deserve. Why don't you call me, and I'll give you a free copy of my book, and then we'll see how we can help you. That is a message that is so different and so personal that it allows him to compete and kill Goliath and grow his business. It really has very little to do with the law, because quite frankly, nobody cares. They want to know, do you know the law, and can you help me? And do I like you? Take that versus been hit by a big truck. We just got an $80 million settlement.
That's so true. I was just thinking of one of those commercials. That's so funny.
It's like, that's what they all say. Yeah. That's a personal story. Every business owner, Nico, has a story like that they're not telling. That's what we do.
Okay. And so this is sort of, I guess that piece is kind of like the marketing genius, which when you first started your marketing firm, I'm assuming it was about telling the story of these businesses. And now you've kind of combined that skill with the book writing function. And so, man, that's really cool. I love that.
Thank you. And
what other ones? Tell me about some other cool ones.
Okay. All right. The other cool one is All right, I got two more real fast. This one's really fun.
Okay.
So Lynn is a financial advisor up in Canada. And she came to me. She was trying to write her second book by herself. She published one by herself. Then she was trying to write a second one. It just wasn't working. She came to me. We helped her finish it out. But she didn't have a storyline. She didn't really. So we talked with her. We went to her website. We figured out what she does. And we created for her this whole concept. We created, positioned her as a Lynn Godfrey. She's the financial architect for Canadians. Okay.
Okay. Her
book cover has houses on it. And we created this retire on purpose process. So retire is actually an acrostic about her process that was already in place, but she had never named it. Well, now she has a name. So we got her book published. We made her an Amazon bestselling author. And marketing, I said, okay, Lynn, here's what I want you to do. She's been a financial advisor for a while. I said, you got a database? You got people like in your email? She's like, yeah. I said, I want you to send an email out to your database. Subject line, don't read my book. Okay, open that up. I want to give you a free copy of my Amazon best-selling book. Just if you're interested, I'll mail one to you. It doesn't cost you a penny. I'd love for you to read it. It'll be very helpful to you. She sent a database of like 800 people. She sent that out. She had 80 people raise their hand and said, yeah, I want a copy of your book. She mails out 80 copies of her book. And within about 2 weeks, she had set 10 appointments and gained 6 clients. I talked to her within 30 days of publishing her book. She told me, she said, Michael, I've already paid for my book with all the business I'm doing from that one strategy. The rest is gravy. Wow. I talked to her about 3 months later. She's like, you know what I'm going to do now, Michael? I said, no, what? She said, I'm going to send my book to all of my neighbors because she lives in an affluent neighborhood. I said, Elaine, you're brilliant. That's great personal marketing, right? That's taking it to an easy level. And we're not even talking about the referrals because we teach them to give multiple copies of your book to your happy clients and say, hey, Nico, thank you for allowing me to set you up with a financial plan. Would you do me a favor? You're always going to say yes. Would you take 3 or 4 copies of my book? And as you're just talking to your friends about how we've helped you set up your financial future, would you just hand them a copy of my book and say, well, here's the person we trust with our finances. Would you do that for me? Is it more cool, Nico, to say, would you take the business card of my financial planner and call her? Or would you say, here's the person I like? I mean, go figure. Talk about referrals. This is how we teach marketing. Very personal, very fun. So that's a Lynn.
That's awesome.
You got time for one more?
I do want one more, actually.
All right, here's one more. You talk about boring commodity. Who is the guy who inspected your home when you bought your house? What's his name? Nobody knows.
Guy.
Home inspectors are commodities, right? So I had a home inspector come to me, Chris Perry, and he says, Michael, I want to be better. I want to grow. I want to be an Amazon bestselling author. I said, okay, great. First question, tell me about you. What do you do, right? And I found out that he ran a good business, but on nights and weekends, he's a high school football referee. And he lit up, Nico. He's like, oh, there's so many similarities. I've got a team and we got flags, we got rules, he just went off. I said, you ever tell that to anybody? No. So we took that and we combined that. We published this book. It's called The Official Guide to Home Inspections because he's an official, right? I made him, I positioned him as Chris Perry, America's home inspection referee. I said, Chris, when you go out to the realtors' offices to talk to them, because that's where he gets most of his business from realtors. I said, I want you to wear your referee uniform, whistle and all. When you're inspecting a house, this is your new outfit. When you find a problem with the house, I want you to put a yellow flag on it. We brought it all together. It was a story that was inside of him that he never thought to tell or to connect. Now, do you think, Nico, maybe there's one home inspector in his market that stands out from everybody else? Maybe? Do you think maybe he can charge a little bit more money for home inspections than John, the home inspector? Maybe? Say yes. It's that positioning and that story that changed everything for Chris. And now he does billboard advertising all around the city with him on his thing, right? It's little things like that we do that change the game for our clients because it's extracting your story and your genius and putting it into a media that everybody sees as credible and then teaching you how to monetize it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
you hit on a point that, we talk about with our clients. We call it monopoly control, but it's basically if you have the right marketing message or combination of products and services with your marketing message such that your market sees you as a monopoly. You're the only one who does what you do, how you do it.
Yes.
Then you can raise your prices, like you said, which gets you higher profit margins, which you can then reinvest into further marketing and growth and whatever. So that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I could go on and on and on, but I'm sure there are other things, but yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And so then, okay, so you help people write these books, and you have a bunch of different systems, a bunch of different marketing tactics, let's say, to help them to leverage their book, to use their book wisely in order to get more sales.
Yes.
Whether that's the going on the morning show or sending out the books, like you mentioned, or sending out the email to your email list with the subject, "Don't read my book." Why was it "Don't read my book"?
Don't read my book. Would you open that? If you got an email from somebody you know, and they say, "Don't read my book," it's too intriguing not to open. And then the body says, "I want to mail you a free copy of my brand new Amazon best-selling book." Now I've got their attention. Now I can tell a story and get them to say, "Yes, I want that." Subject line is number 2 in email marketing. That's the second most important thing in email marketing. And that's why we put that subject line in there.
Wow. Well, you're clearly super knowledgeable about marketing, and very enthusiastic about the book writing thing and telling people stories.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I want to start to wrap here a little bit. I had one more question. I'm just looking at my notes here. What is the credibility calculator?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. Everybody asks me and has for long. Well, what is credibility, and how do I know how much credibility I have, right? And so a few years ago, I created the credibility calculator. It's an online calculator. In under 5 minutes, by answering 20 questions, I will tell you how credible you are in the eyes of your audience, 0 to 100 scale. And then you're going to get your score. You're going to be a 68, let's say. I will then follow that up with 5 videos that will teach you how to improve the credibility that you have in the eyes of your audience, because that's what matters. It's how they think of you. So the credibility calculator is on our website. You can go to credibilitycalculator.com, but it's under 5 minutes. I'll give you your credibility score and teach you how to improve it.
Awesome. Super cool. And other than that, what is the best way for people to reach out to you to get your help and building their credibility, writing a book, that sort of thing? LinkedIn, website? What do you recommend?
Website, paperbackexpert.com is just the central hub of all things Michael. You can reach me. You can see all our videos. You can get free trainings. You can connect with me. Paperbackexpert.com.
Okay, cool. Paperbackexpert.com. We got the credibility calculator. We'll definitely link to both of those.
Thanks.
Michael, thank you very much for sitting down with me today, man. This was awesome. Thank you for joining me in the Lion's Den.
You are welcome. It's been so much fun, Nico. Thanks for having me.